Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to RotoCurve.com. I'm Josh Collacchi, and I'm here to discuss Week 4's NFL Daily Fantasy Football picks. We're going to go on with wide receivers. We've already discussed quarterbacks and running backs, and tonight we'll get into wide receivers and some other stuff as well. So be sure to tune in to everything that's over there at RotoCurve.com. It's all free. Every bit of analysis, every tool, everything's free over there. So be sure to take advantage of everything. But let's dive right into it. For wide receivers on FanDuel, you need 3 of them. And it's a big slate this week, so it's something that we're definitely going to want to kind of dive right into. There's a few top guys, there's a few mid-tier guys, and some cheap guys that are worth playing. So let's get right into it. My top-tier guy for this week is definitely A.J. Green, wide receiver from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's 8,400 on FanDuel this week, and there are a few reasons why I like him as the top-tier option. You ever think about what a perfect matchup would be for a given player? Maybe it's a matchup against a cornerback for a receiver, or maybe it's depending on how the safeties respond, or really just how the whole defense performs as a whole. That's exactly why A.J. Green is my top option this week at 8,400, simply because he has that matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs have given him 750 yards and 9 touchdowns of receivers this season so far. And that's incredible because they've only played 3 games. So that means on average, wide receivers are catching 250 yards and 3 touchdowns per game so far. So it's really a big thing to look at. And when you look at that Bengals offense, A.J. Green has most of the yards and the touchdowns at the wide receiver position. We saw last week he caught, I believe, 12 balls for 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he is the #1 target for Andy Dalton, who we discussed earlier this week as our top quarterback option on FanDuel, at least for me in cash games. So I think pairing him with a guy like A.J. Green makes for an excellent play because he's going to be lining up against the Chiefs, who have really struggled to cover any receiver. And as you guys all well know, A.J. Green's not just any receiver. He's one of the best in the NFL. My second-tier receiver is Amari Cooper, who may be a top-tier receiver by the end of this year, but right now he's priced at just 7,200, and he makes for my top second-tier guy to pair with A.J. Green in your most of your cash games and even in your tournaments. The reason why I like him so much this week is because he faces the Chicago Bears, who have been one of the worst defenses in the NFL against pretty much every category, but especially in the wide receiver position, where they have allowed guys to just run up and down the field. Of course, we heard about Kyle Fuller's younger brother, Kendall Fuller, being out for the season for Virginia Tech, but his older brother is the guy that Amari Cooper is likely going to face this week. And Fuller was very good last year before his hand injury. We talked about this before, but for some reason, after he got hurt, he's really struggled in man coverage, zone coverage, and it's something to really look for because he's likely going to line up in man coverage against Amari Cooper, and that's one thing Amari Cooper has been able to beat his entire career so far in the NFL, 3 games, but his entire career in college as well. So look for him to be the guy that Derek Carr targets a lot. I'm looking for him to catch maybe a few deep passes, and he's, of course, the top option in the passing game for the Raiders. So in a good matchup against the Bears, I really like him this week. Now, he has been good so far this season, and one of the reasons why I like him this week is really how he's looked in the first 2 weeks, or the first 3 weeks, rather. And it's really interesting to look at because in the last 2 weeks, he's done very well against Joe Hayden and Jimmy Smith, who are 2 of the better cover corners in the NFL. So it's interesting to look at a guy like that. He's been performing very well so far as a rookie, and he gets an even better matchup this week against the Bears. So I'm looking for him to be my wide receiver 2 in most of my lineups. My third-tier receiver this week is a guy that has been cut by a few teams. He's a guy that's just 31 years old. Some people can describe him as a journeyman. But he leads the NFL, or is tied for the lead in the NFL in touchdown catches right now. That's James Jones for the Green Bay Packers. This guy, as soon as he was cut, as soon as Jordy Nelson got hurt in the preseason in Week 1, we knew that James Jones was going to be a guy that catches a few touchdown passes for the Packers. Now, we didn't know he was going to catch, I believe he has 4 now this season. I don't think we was going to catch that soon, but with all those injuries to the Packers receivers, we just saw Devontae Adams go down with an ankle injury on Monday night. James Jones is that number one guy on the outside. Of course, Randall Cobb is the #1 option for Aaron Rodgers, but James Jones is the top guy on the outside. For any time you can get a guy like that with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, it makes for a good play. Now, in Week 4, he's $6,000 on FanDuel, and he's going to be facing the San Francisco 49ers, whose defense has really come down fast. They lost Chris Culliver last year, and their 2 cornerbacks are not anywhere close in terms of talent as they have been in the past. As the Niners have shown it so far this year, allowing the 5th most fantasy points to opposing receivers. So a guy like James Jones, who has that good matchup, he has a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball to him, and he's shown his ability to get open and catch touchdown passes already. I think he makes for a very good bargain play, just $6,000, as he can fit in your lineups and will let you afford some top-tier receivers, as we just talked about, A.J. Green, a top running back maybe, and then even a top quarterback if you didn't want to spend on one of the cheap guys. So a guy like James Jones, who is the top outside receiver in a pass-happy offense and a good matchup, all the stars are aligning for him to fall in as your top wide receiver 3 on FanDuel for this week. Some other cheap guys I wanted to mention real quick. I really like Travis Benjamin. Again, he just continues to score touchdowns, which may seem like an anomaly to some people, but he's done it 3 weeks in a row, so I don't see why he couldn't do it again. And the last guy is Ted Ginn for the Carolina Panthers. There's nobody else there in Carolina in terms of wide receivers. They do have Greg Olsen, a tight end, but Ted Ginn's pretty much the only guy they have there, and he's the only deep threat they have there as well. So I look for him to be a solid option as a cheap guy who's basically cheap everywhere. So if you need to go a little bit cheaper, if you're spending up on other positions, those guys would be Travis Benjamin, Ted Ginn, or even James Jones, who I think is worth spending up on as a wide receiver 3. Just to recap, I do like A.J. Green as my top receiver, and Amari Cooper is my top second-tier receiver. Pair those along with some cheap guys, and you can have a good receiving core on FanDuel for Week 4. That's exactly what we're looking for in cash games and in GPPs. You're going to need fantasy points from your receivers. So let's use this. Let's use all the rest of the tools over at RotoCurve, and let's make Week 4 a profitable one in NFL DFS. Good luck, everybody.